Hello, everybody. Welcome to Failing Forward, where our motto is learn to fail and you'll finally succeed. My name is Nick. I'm here with my co host, Harris, and a very, very special guest, our first guest, in fact, Robert Robertson. He's my uncle, and I'm very glad to have him on the show.
I'm happy to be here, Nick. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So, today we're actually going to be talking about dieting, food, and just eating in general, our relationship with these things. I'm going to give a shout out to my mom. This is something that she recommended to us to do because I think I've been through 5 different diets in the last probably 6 years. When I moved out on my own, I think I started with the keto diet. Then I moved on to just fasting for 3 days. Eventually went to 1 meal a day, intermittent fasting, being vegetarian, vegan, and now I'm where I'm at now, which is just kind of eating food. I don't feel like I have a specific diet, but during that whole journey, I noticed how it was really interesting going through ranges of emotions and how food really impacted my well-being throughout the day. And it's something that I think it's something you just learn throughout life, and it's kind of a struggle and a touch and go thing. So today, I just thought like it would be good to not just share my experience, but actually talk to my uncle and Harris, because Harris, you're Muslim. You just finished Ramadan.
Yep.
Okay. And that's a very different experience for most Americans. And I know, Rob, you've been on a lot of different diets. I don't know if you've been on them for the same reasons as me, but I think we'll get into that. So, without further ado, Rob, I'm sorry. So the the first question I'm going to ask is a very light question. It's just, what was the last thing you ate today? Both of you.
I had a turkey. This is Rob. I had a turkey wrap with Gouda cheese. She had two on a sriracha ranch net carb zero tortilla, and I had two skinny dipped peanut butter cups.
Oh, skinny dipped. Wait, what does that mean?
That means they have very little chocolate, mostly nuts, and they're designed for.
Uh,
They're approved for the program I'm on. In terms of monitoring the blood sugar. So they're really good. They're my sweet treat. And instead of having them at dessert time, I try to eat them a little bit earlier in the day for my blood sugar.
right. That sounds really good. You really described that well. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
I'm
a
you.
like,
good sounding meal. I kind of want that.
Harris, what'd you eat today?
I had a shrimp po' boy with fries, and then and then when I got home, I had a little bit of Haagen-Dazs with truffle with like raspberry ice cream because the po' boy was really spicy, and I wanted something to offset that. So that's what I had when I got home.
Oh my God. Today's your cheat day.
Every day is cheat day for me. But no, it
Uh,
was really good. It was a food truck that came by work, and
okay.
today's was like the seafood one, and so they
Mhm.
had like po' boys and fish and chips, but I had the po' boy. It's very
Oh
good.
my gosh. Oh, that's both of what you guys ate sounds so delicious. I was expecting like, I don't know, something really straightforward like, oh, a ham sandwich. But not for you, Harris, of course. And
What'd you have, Nick?
um so yeah, I had chili and that's it. Just vegetarian chili, some sour cream and um tortilla chips. Very boring compared to what you guys had. It still tasted good.
Is it
Just
one of the
not as
chilies? Is it one of the chili that you made a pot this weekend and you're just kind of eating through the week?
yeah. Yeah, but I put it in
Mm.
another bowl before. I don't just go spoon in the whole pot and eat what I feel like.
You're not an
Try to
animal,
stay
in other words.
sanitary. Yeah, I'm not an animal. But yeah, this is one of my tried and true recipes. Like in undergrad, when I started living on my own, this is probably one of the first recipes that I just started. It's a good building recipe because I could just keep add to it, change things, and it's evolved throughout the years I've made it. Um, recent hack, getting chipotle peppers in adobo sauce really spikes the flavor. It tastes really good. That's a good thing to just get a little bit of at the store.
A good move. You said it was vegetarian?
It is vegetarian. Yeah, there's no meat. I've tried to add meat to it, but it doesn't. I don't know. The meat actually detracts from the tomato flavor, and that's what I really like.
Interesting.
At least with the recipe I have, you probably got to change it up when you add meat. I don't know. Um, so my follow up question now is: do you guys consider what you guys ate healthy? Not is it like
No.
objectively healthy? Did you consider that to be healthy? Okay. What about you, Rob?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's I'm on this program where I have to monitor all the food I eat, and everything I had was they're color coded into either green foods, orange foods, or red foods. Red foods I should not have.
Hmm.
Green foods are always good for me, and orange foods are kind of like, if you eat enough green foods first, you can have a little bit of orange food, and
Hmm.
the orange foods are mostly carbs. So everything I had was strictly green, lined up perfect for me. So I would say it's healthy, as healthy-ish, at least in terms of meeting what the medical professionals have told me to eat. So I'm
Right.
counting it as healthy.
And is there like a guideline for what makes it green? Because I know you and I have talked about this, where it's the weirdest things will be red, and it's like it's the things that are red usually make sense, but it's like a slice of bread, just one
Yeah,
single slice is red.
carbs. Bread is bad. That's why I use the net zero tortillas.
Right.
Uh, Pure sugar, like the ice cream that Harris had,
Hmm.
it's always going to be red. Um, uh,
Harris messed
Pastries,
up.
muffins, anything like that. For me, it's going to be red. It spikes my blood
Right.
sugar. But generally proteins, vegetables, and what's also important is sequencing the food. Vegetables
Mm.
first, and your proteins, and finishing up with sugars, or if it's a small amount of carbs that's allowed. It's good to sequence it that way, for at least for the blood sugar purposes.
Right. So there's actually like you think about that when you eat, like what order you eat things in. Maybe not every single time, but it sounds like you do think about that a lot. Because
I'd
I
say
don't
now
think I've ever thought of it like that.
90% of the time now.
Yeah.
That's why I start most meals with 2 cucumbers.
Ah, I thought you just like cucumbers.
I do, but, it's also good to eat your water.
So to back up for a sec, because I'm not as familiar with the program you're on, what's kind of the goal of it? Is it for like weight loss, or is there something you're nutritionally deficient in that you're trying to compensate for?
Oh, no, it's not for weight loss, although I have lost weight on it. I'm kind of stable now. But, what it is, about maybe 2 years ago, I crossed the threshold from pre-diabetic into diabetic. I'm almost 60
Mm.
years old now, and, this is a program that was offered, um, where the goal of it is to basically, um, using exercise, proper dieting, and other little small things here and there to get you off of, um, diabetic medication, and to allow your body to heal, so you can go back to being, um, non-diabetic. I was on, 3 different diabetic medications. Nothing serious, but, I was able to stop all of them. Blood sugar is better than it's been in years. It'll still go up every now and then if I eat something I shouldn't, or, certain infections will cause it to go up. But generally, it's been fantastic. My A1C has dropped into a, uh, non-diabetic level. It's been great.
So
That's
just what is A1C? Is that like a medical measurement?
It's the amount of glucose I think you have in your blood over an extended period of time.
Oh, okay.
So
Right.
people who the higher it is, the worse off you get. I've got a
Hmm.
glucose monitor. You may have seen that in some commercials where it shows up like on my phone right now. It tells me what my blood sugar is, and shows a record of it for the last 24 hours. So
That's really good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been really proud of you for the last, I don't know, I guess couple years. It's really been on an upward trend.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
dad has diabetes, and he's been on that medication for his like ever since he's gotten it. I think I did not know there
Mhm.
was a natural way to kind of
Mm.
counter the effects of what diabetes does. So it's pretty neat to hear. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. I mean, I only have type 2. I don't know, I don't know if it works for type 1, but
Mhm.
I um, recommend being mindful about what you eat. Although it's not like I always have been, but I recommend it now.
So does that have to do with the order in which you eat things too? Like, does that help with it?
Yeah, oh, it definitely helps with it. What you eat, what order. You just try to, there's, I've probably read more about like the proper ways to diet in my life than I've read almost about anything else. And,
Mhm.
everyone's got different ideas, different thoughts. There've been many fad diets. But I think there's an element of mindfulness, like thinking about what you're doing, why you're doing it. Um, that, that is probably at the core of most successful diets.
This
Sounds less
might
like a
be
diet, more like a lifestyle kind of change, right?
ah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
no, there was a while, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago where they were just getting rid of the word diet. It's like it's a lifestyle change. Think of it as a lifestyle
Mhm.
change. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
This is a really good transition because I really wanted to talk about near the beginning of this episode about what the origins of dieting was. Like, where did that word come from? And who was the first person who made a diet? I don't know if you guys do either of you know who came up with the idea of dieting?
No.
No. Sounds like you guys are looking at me blankly, so I'm going to say no.
I didn't
Um
know there was going to be a quiz on this podcast today. I didn't
yeah, you should have
study.
studied. Um so the first thing, this is a little interesting idea that goes exactly with what Rob said. The word diet comes from the Greek, according to Wikipedia, a source I found on there. And the original Greek word is dieta, which it didn't mean exactly what it means now. Like when you hear diet, you think explicitly what you're eating, and exactly what you said, Rob. Your doctor would probably say, no, don't think about it as a diet change. Think of it as a lifestyle change. The Greek word dieta actually kind of can combine those two ideas where it's not just about what you're eating, it's also how you're living. And actually, the very first, like the top most used definition for it is your way of living. So it's a holistic view of dieta is everything you do in your life. And that includes what you eat, but it's also kind of just anything you would do in your life. Like yeah, anything in your lifestyle, when you wake up, when you go to sleep, if you exercise. And it seems like we've kind of separated the two ideas, but I think based on what I've talked to before the episode, talking to Harris and to you, Rob, it seems like you can't think of it isolated in a food sense. You have to go more towards combining the ideas where it is a lifestyle change. And so the first person who made a diet, I want you guys to guess the year at least. What year do you think who the first person created a diet was in the West? A diet for health reasons.
18, no, 1910.
I'll go.
1910.
I'll go. I'll go. I think it's a good guess, but I'll go a little bit earlier. I'll go 1885.
Wow, you guys are actually 100 plus years too late. So there's this guy in Great Britain in the early 1700s, like the turn of the century into the 1700s. And he was a doctor, a physician. His name was George Cheney. And this guy at the time weighed 450 pounds. And I think 400 pounds nowadays is still like a lot of weight. But in the 1700s, that sounds like you wouldn't, that he's definitely like one of the largest people in the world at the time, probably. And again, he's a doctor, he's a physician. He's writing literature on how people should live their lives, how to be healthy. And it seems like his life's work eventually shifted from whatever he talked about in his early work to trying to make himself healthier because he realized he had gone down a really bad path. And a lot of the things that Rob was saying about what doctors say nowadays really echoed in what he was saying in his writing. So what he did to lose a lot of weight and try and get a healthier lifestyle was he went on a vegetarian diet essentially. But he didn't call it vegetarian diet. I don't think they would have called it that back then. He just gave a list. And in the list he said, I commonly only eat, my diet consists of milk, cheese, butter and bread, tea, and sometimes coffee, salads, fruits, seeds, vegetables, roots, and he would not drink beer, wine, or liquor. And that's pretty much all he said. He said, I just eat those things, and that he rises commonly at 6 and goes to bed at 10. So I think back then he focused on the food aspect, but in how he wrote about it, there was a lot of things about there's willpower. It takes willpower, and it's a good Christian will eat well and restrict themselves. These were things that he would say while he was writing about how to lose weight and having this healthy diet. And those are some key things. I mean, just in the first person who wrote about dieting, those are key things that come up nowadays, which is really interesting. It hasn't really changed much. At least I don't think it has with, I mean, most people still say dieting takes willpower. It's not an easy thing to do. And it's always something you have to put energy into, and you're resisting temptation, but they never talk about it as like incorporating it into your life as a thing that's part of you. It's always an external thing that you're doing. So that's something that has stayed the same with George's diet. It takes willpower, and you really only diet if there's something wrong with you. You never incorporate it into your lifestyle as something that, again, is just part of who you are.
I
And
think
yeah.
I think I mean, willpower is definitely important.
Mhm.
But I think that there's a common perception that, you know, people who are heavier don't have willpower. And
Exactly.
I understand that there could be a lot of reasons. And I think there's an emotional component to eating, or an aspect that's just simply overcomes will, or people aren't able to do what they would ordinarily like. I mean, you look at, I mean, what is it? I think there's only one or two states that are less than a third of the people, or less than a third of the people are not obese. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
across our country, 35 to 40%, most of the people fall into the obese or morbidly obese category, I believe. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a lot of people who, I think there are other factors too. I mean, I think there's a socioeconomic factor, an emotional
Mhm.
component, and I think that some people just haven't been properly educated as to what, I mean, I consider myself a sharp guy, and I'm reasonably well educated, and I'm still learning more and more about what to do, what not to do, and how to work within my own mind to get me where I want to go.
Yeah. It is, yeah, there's a lot of factors at play, and I think it's different for everybody. Because I was just thinking about people who are usually on the lower end of, the economic, how well off they are. I mean, they might only have access to those really cheap foods that are bad for you. It's actually now it's more expensive to get foods that are good for you, whereas it's yeah, you and they can't afford it, or they might not even have the choice to go buy those foods. They only have like a general store or a Dollar General where they get their food, depending on where they're at.
You
I
It's
know,
was actually thinking of fast
yeah,
food. I don't know if you saw that
that too.
documentary, Super Size Me, where he just ate McDonald's day in, day out, and it was
Yeah,
like he wasn't spending a lot of money, but it definitely had catastrophic effects on his
yeah.
himself, his lifestyle, and everything. Uh,
I've heard
but they
some
are
issues with
cheaper.
that. It is cheaper. Yeah. The documentary showed, I mean, nobody's eating only McDonald's, but
Yeah.
still the point was made.
Mhm.
Yeah, because if you are actually only eating McDonald's, then I mean, there might be people who do eat McDonald's every day, even if they know it's unhealthy.
Yeah.
It's just tastes good. Well, any other thoughts on that aspect of where dieting first started. There's a lot more of dieting that happened between 1700 and now, but I feel like the main thing hasn't changed, the main way we think about it.
Oh, I'd agree with you. I think that as I don't know if it's an epidemic, but as the amount of obese or overweight people has grown, I think you see more and more emphasis put on to um, how to deal with it, and it has
Mhm.
strained the healthcare system um,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of physical complications, other diseases or conditions that come with being obese, being overweight. I don't know how you
Mhm.
guys want to phrase it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's somebody who said, I think you've had this issue too where they won't operate on you because of your size, and,
Oh yeah.
somebody said, like, they gave a reason, like, they couldn't do an when they did an autopsy on somebody who was obese, all of the tools were, like, very oily and greasy and slipping in their hands, and it was, like, very clear why it's so tough to sometimes do a surgery in that way.
Oh, I didn't know anything about that. It was just from from a medical perspective that when you're larger, there are more potential complications that occur in putting you under anesthesia, um,
Oh, that's also
and
true.
of those nature. So,
Yeah, that's probably more correct. That mine was an anecdote I saw on YouTube, to be honest.
So, well, cutting edge research you've done for this episode.
I saw this years ago. I didn't do that research for this episode. That's old
Okay.
knowledge.
so basically, it was just hit Wikipedia, not even going to YouTube as your backup
I did
verification
go to
source.
YouTube. No, I used YouTube. I go to several sources. I actually went to the original source to read about George Cheney. I could have just stopped at Wikipedia and said George Cheney was a physician who was 400 pounds. That's the story you guys would have gotten if I had not done my due diligence. Cutting edge research here.
I did want to go back to the state obesity thing. Kind of interesting. There's actually there's no eight, sorry, seven states that are less than 30%, and number one for the least obese is Colorado. So I got to give a shout out
Right.
to my state here.
Nice. Yeah,
But
me and my friends looked up that there's a chart that tells
yep,
you.
yep.
But yeah, it really is it's a big thing going on around the whole US. All
I was
right.
not aware
So,
that 30% was such a like a benchmark for this kind of thing. But yeah.
mm,
Anyways, we can say
I was going to transition. So the rest of the podcast is going to look like me interviewing first you, Rob, and then Harris, just about how your diets have changed and just any thoughts you guys have on your diets. But Rob, my first question to you is just you already told us a little bit about your diet now, but has your diet always looked like that and how has it changed throughout your life?
You know, being as old as I am, my diet's changed a lot through my life. Um,
Yeah. You have a lot
uh,
of wisdom. That's why I thought it would be a great question.
so.
I don't
How
know.
old are you?
I'm almost 60, Harris. Hopefully I'll make 60 this year. But I've always been huge, you know. And as a kid, probably in the eighth grade, I was at 330. You know, I was already, the size of most NFL linemen. Um,
Mm.
I've dipped below that maybe twice, once in college and once about 10 years ago. But I've spent most of my life probably between 450 and 500 pounds. Um, I got as high, at least according to a truck scale in Kentucky, um, 6'10". So
Wow.
that was when I was a younger man, like maybe 30. I was,
Yeah.
you see these shows like My 600 Pound Life, and I was never like that. I was
You were
fully
always
functional.
Yeah, you were always moving. I never saw you as like just somebody just sat down all the time.
Yeah, I got to tell you, after a while though, yeah, I found now in the last couple years, movement's a lot harder with the weight on you. Um,
Mhm.
it's always been, I mean, I could do a year's worth of daily podcasts on how my weight has affected me, physically, mentally, emotionally, etc. But
Yeah.
I think the gist of it is that, if I could correct one mistake in my life, and I've made more than a few, it would be to somehow get the weight off early and keep it off. I mean, I've lost,
Hmm.
there have been times where I've lost like 100 pounds, 150, 200 pounds, but it comes back. Um,
Really, 200 pounds, like just very quickly you lost it, and then
Not very quickly. I went on a diet, maybe 6 years ago, um, where it
mm,
was an OptiFast program. It was great for me. But
mm,
all I had was I would only drink shakes and certain high protein like bars. And it was medically supervised. I would see a doctor every so often, and that weight
mm.
just melted off of me. Um, so,
Was that
Lois,
lost in like a healthy way, or was it too much too fast?
I mean, the doctor, I mean, they did a lot of things in terms of like I would have to get blood tests every 3 or 4 weeks. I'd have to go on certain machines to check if I wasn't losing too much, if I was losing muscle mass rather than fat. So I was monitored. The doctor was great, but the thing is, when you go on such a
Like an
that
extreme thing.
extreme diet, it comes back. Like one of the things they would do is they would cycle me off of it every 3 or 4 months, and I would go for like a 4 week period where I would eat one meal a day, a small meal. And most
Mm.
people gained weight during that time. I still lost, just not as quickly. But problem is that like once you would go back to eating normal food, the weight would just like, you know, it would just
Yeah,
like come right back on you. I mean, that's why it's a um lifestyle change. Like I have to this is not like a race where I get to the end and then I can eat whatever I want. This
yeah.
is this is what I have to do for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
Just what I have to do. Or else I'm going to get even. I mean, I'm under 400 pounds now. I say under.
I don't
I
know if the
mean,
clapping's
just.
coming up, but I'm clapping for
If
you.
you want to know, Nick, I was 396.4 this morning. So,
Woo!
yeah, that's fantastic. But I haven't lost, I've been between like 390 and 410 for the last 3.5 months, maybe.
Hmm.
That's where my body is settling. I also was told, for what it's worth, that when your body gets this big, um, maybe it's not even this big, but when the size that you get to, your body wants to keep it at that size. Like it's like an engine
Hmm.
where it just if you lose weight, the body's thinking like something's going on, something's wrong. We need to, and it's almost like
Yeah.
drives you to eat more to get back to where you were. I don't know if that's true or not, but I was told that by a doctor.
I think that aspect makes sense because fat is not just an object in your body. It's physically part of your body, and it's part of the processes of your body. So it's been storing fat or taking fat like at a constant rate for years, and then suddenly it's taking a lot more fat than it's used to. So any change, I mean, I think that must make some sense, at least without knowing any of the science behind it.
You know,
It's kind of like
If I,
homeostasis, the new normal that you've reached, and
yeah,
then that's what your body tries to maintain, right? Probably that kind of thing.
yeah, or
yeah,
like as an analogy, just any part of your body when it's whatever your body's normal is, when you try to go away from what you think is normal, it's gonna feel weird, and your body might not like it at first.
you know, when I'm not trying to discourage anyone, uh, but I don't think it's just at first.
Oh,
Like,
you think the whole time feels like it's just not right.
guys, I mean, I mean, I've held on for 2 years, 3 years, and then it just comes back. It's still the same underlying whole.
Mhm.
In terms of you ask about diet. Um,
Mhm.
it wasn't that I didn't like the stuff like salads and vegetables. I just
Mhm.
liked other food better. I mean, I loved pizza. I have an incredible sweet tooth. Um, but I mean, throughout my entire life, my family, with the exception of young Nick and his sister Heidi. Shout out to Heidi.
Shout out
My
to Heidi. She deserves a shout out. She's a good
my,
person.
my friend Street Kitty. With the exception of those two, everyone else in the family is heavy. Not as heavy as me though. But
Woo!
but I mean, but but we have
Winner.
but we
Sorry.
have but we have a situation where we would always celebrate with food. You know, when I was
Mhm.
feeling bad, I'd eat food. I used to be a value meal eater, especially being a college student, law student.
Mhm.
Those Arby's five sandwiches for $5 would be like, oh,
Whoa.
this is a deal. You know,
Yeah, I don't think they
and
have that anymore. They were losing money.
and then you look at like McDonald's and those kind of companies. Not to bash McDonald's, but they always have this specials like they'll
Mhm.
feed you really cheap at the beginning of the year when people are trying to diet. They want you to come in and buy two ham. There's no one in the world who needs to eat two double Big Macs. You know, I mean, it's
Yeah.
I have, and they were tasty. Um, but
Yeah.
you know, so I think it's not so much. I definitely ate a lot in my life. Um,
Mhm.
I don't think it's the amount. It's not as about what I ate or the amount solely, but it's a combination of the two.
Mhm. I wanted to say that I've been laughing in the background just because the way you say these things, you have so much joy when you're talking about something so heavy. I mean, it really is. Go ahead. Go ahead.
When I'm talking about something so heavy,
Oh,
no, I'm
that's
just
a good
kidding,
one.
Nick.
Good
I'm just
one.
Nick. I'm
Good
just
one.
messing.
No, I know.
Nick,
I know.
you're my nephew. I love you. We have a great relationship.
Not
And we
after
joke
this.
about we joke about this stuff all the time. No, it's an open
Yeah.
book. I know I'm coming on this podcast, and probably thousands of people are going to listen to this, and they're going to hear my stories. And that's
Yeah.
fine. But no, I don't think you're being insensitive or anything like that.
No, I just wanted to say like we're all on video right now for the podcast listeners. So I can see Rob the way he says it, he's got a smirk. So I know like maybe it doesn't show up in the podcast, but I know he's got a little bit of like a
Think of it more as a smile than
self-deprecating.
a smirk. Oh, I'm definitely self-deprecating. But I
But
listen.
yeah.
You're on the right podcast.
I appreciate the struggle that comes with. I
Mhm.
mean, in terms of fighting for all those people out there who have tried it. The whole idea of failing forward. I mean, what is it? Like 90% of diets end up in failure or something like that, or that people put on
Mhm.
at least like 50% of the weight they lost, if not more. I mean,
Right.
this is an area where you have a huge amount of failure. Um, but I
Mhm.
think you got to stop looking at it as failure. You're just, progress, not perfection.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm never going to be 200 pounds. Um, but if I get down to 350, I know that sounds like, oh my God, what is he talking about? I get down to 350, I'll be so happy. Then I'll shoot for maybe 325. Just
That would be great if you got below that weight that you said you were at in middle school, because that would be like a lifetime achievement. I'm not making a joke. I feel like I said that as a little bit of a funny tone, but like I really mean that because I think that would be really truly exciting. Now you're laughing at me. I'm sorry.
I am, because if you excerpted that quote, it would be a great quote. And it would be one that could be used, you know,
Cancel him. Yep.
Yeah.
in a fun quote. But I know what you meant, buddy.
Yeah.
I would think about it. I got so happy. I almost dipped below 300 once. Almost.
Yeah.
I'll let you know if I do. I'll come back on the podcast if I do.
Yeah, we can have the follow-up
Recurring guest.
episode.
Yeah.
But it's more of a
No.
marathon and not a sprint, where like you have these little
Yeah.
goals that you want to work towards instead of this huge, big goal post that you might never
Right.
like reach.
Oh yeah, I agree
And
100%. Well put, Harris.
yeah, well put. I think I want to touch on two things. The first thing is that one was it the Opti fast, the one that you get lost like so much weight very quickly with the shakes.
Yes.
That diet, it seems like they tackled it only on the food side. Is that true? Did they? I mean, maybe they told you it's a
No,
lifestyle change, but
no, no, no. They were great.
Yeah.
They had like a dietitian I met with, one of my favorite people I've
Mm,
met in my entire life, and she got it. We talked about why I ate. They gave me tests like to
mm.
determine what type of eater I was. There are 4 types of eater.
Oh,
People who
right.
over overeat. I was all 4. I don't remember what they all
Yeah.
were. I was all 4, and I was like high on all 4.
Oh my gosh.
I know you have to
Is that a
score
good
between.
grade or a bad
Well,
grade?
it's a terrible grade. It's like you had to score between 16 and 20 points. And then you could see it when she was looking at the test. She was just looking at it like almost like she had to double check it. And she's like, "Well, you actually scored high on all 4."
You exceeded all
Um,
expectations,
yeah,
which
they
is
had
bad.
an exercise component,
Mhm,
which is hard when you're so large. It's hard to move
mhm,
as much as other people. You know, I would move. It's just harder, but it creates a bad cycle. You get down on not moving, and then you
mhm,
use food to comfort yourself, which is the problem.
mhm.
It's a vicious cycle. Um,
Yeah.
they had that component. They had a group component too, where you would sit and talk to other people who were trying to lose weight and what they were doing.
Mm. Mhm,
So I thought the program itself was good, and I love the people. I just think that the problem is the diet itself wasn't built for sustainability. It was based all on if I wanted to eat that for the rest of my life, um, then it would probably be okay. But at the end, this is what got me off the diet. I'll just tell you this now if we've got time.
Oh, yeah, we have time.
Um,
Yeah.
I wasn't losing weight anymore, but
Mm.
I was ravenous. I mean, I've been hungry in my life, and I don't use the
Mhm.
word ravenous lightly. I would see like a brick. I'd want to eat the brick. Literally. Like
Wow.
I had
Wow.
like the desire to just eat any it was like that. It was just like I was just like I couldn't it was just like it was an unbelievable feeling inside of me. Like
Like
I
you were
just
you
want
just needed it.
yeah, it was so weird. Um
Mm.
You said the
and then
diet was mostly like shakes and stuff like that. And so was it like
pro-
the lack of food that really got to you and made you ravenous?
I mean I was hungry throughout the diet when like I would use you get 4 high protein shakes a day and then 2 little bars.
Mm.
And I mean, I would be very preoccupied with food. I would be hungry. I would try to drink a lot of water to minimize it. And
Mhm.
then that lessened a little bit. But when it at the end is the only point where it got where I truly used the word ravenous, where it was excuse me, where it was like it was beyond hunger. It wasn't like I mean, I throughout the whole diet I would crave like salty foods and
Mhm,
carbs.
mhm.
Those are the things you really crave because but this was like craving like almost like minerals or like literally brick. And I don't know why, but that's what it just wasn't. I remember having the talk with the doctor about it. I'm like, you know, I can't do this. I can't do this if I'm going to feel like I want to eat bricks and I'm not losing weight. And he was great. He was just like, you know, hit these plateaus, you know, just need to, you know, go through it. And I think the cycling was supposed to help with that, but it just didn't. I got down when I got down. It was, at that time I was down to maybe 315. It was just like my body was something stopped. So
Yeah.
um, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I wanted to add there's this thing I remember hearing about something that I think made me actually start fasting was some guy on YouTube had brought up this study from the 1900s where somebody this is relevant to what you just shared where they took a bunch of men and they didn't completely cut food out for them. They just said you only get 500 to 1000 calories a day. They just severely cut their calories and I don't think they were overweight. It was just regular people to see what would happen. A classic Nick experiment. I could have been that. I could have been that guy. But so they did that and then I think some amount of time into the experiment all of the participants kind of went crazy where any amount of food you gave them, they would be acting ravenous, they would be very irritable towards each other. And it the way that I heard it described just sounded like they were just being very just animalistic towards their food. And it was like they would give them a turnip, a raw turnip, and they would just be fight over the turnip, a single turnip. And that sounds very similar to what you're saying. Like when you go from what's normal and you just like really restrict what you're doing only in the food category, then it really like has a toll takes a toll on your mental state in that way at least. But how does that relate to what you were sharing? What do you think about that? Is that sounding similar at all?
I've never wrestled anyone over a turnip. I know
Yeah, of course.
I know sounding like I I wanna go around and eat a brick may sound
Yeah.
strange, but I've never, I
A
mean,
turnip, that must be crazy. Who would eat that?
no, but I mean, I think irritability comes with dieting. I
Mhm,
think that, sometimes, I would think, it at least has in my instance, but, um, I think that anytime you do something so extreme and so artificial, you have to think now, is it gonna last? And what are the
mhm,
consequences? I mean, it was great that the weight came off. You know, I felt so good. Um,
mhm.
and I felt 100 times worse when it came back on, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, I'm happy I've lost weight recently, but I'm not that nearly as happy in a weird way because I don't know when the next time it's gonna all come back. Or you can put it this way, where
Mhm,
I don't know if I'm gonna fail again and then it's all gonna come back.
mhm.
So, it's always something in the back of my mind and something I strive to try to, overcome.
It sounds like that's kind of the difficulty with a diet is this gonna is this gonna work? Is it sustainable? Do you feel it sounds like this diet you're on is much more sustainable than the other ones because you're not really I mean, you can't eat certain foods, but you also have a much closer relationship with how you feel when you eat something. Like I notice you say, "Oh, you ate a piece of cake or something," and you know it's that thing that made you feel bad. Versus
Yeah.
sometimes like it's not as drastic of like you just binge eat. It sounds like way more sustainable,
I
at
think
least being
I
closer to
think
you and hearing about it.
oh, I agree. I think journaling, I don't journal, but, like, I do put in all the foods I eat, even the bad ones.
Mhm.
They're not as many as you think, and, I have noticed that doing that has caused a relationship where when I know I'm feeling off,
Mhm.
it's probably because I had a piece of cake. When was it? 2 weeks ago for, Heidi's birthday. Um,
Yeah.
and it was just like, immediately did not feel well. It wasn't just my blood sugar. My blood sugar did go up, but
Mhm.
it wasn't just that. It was just like, I think my body runs better with less in it, you know? Um, which is ironic for someone of my size, but I think that's the way it is.
Actually,
Sounds like you have a better
yeah.
relationship and better understanding of yourself now and food and that kind of stuff. Like the fact that you're able to
Yeah.
pinpoint that single slice of cake threw you off completely is not something a lot of people can do or are willing to do. So that's pretty neat.
I would agree. I think that's kind of the goal. It's maybe for some people the goal might be to lose weight, but at the end of the day, every time you do a diet, hopefully you learn something about your body, even if it emotionally is draining. And probably draining is too light of a word for a failure like that. But after the diet, hopefully you've learned something and you have gained something that you didn't have before, an
You know, I
experience that you can steal you before other things.
yeah, I think you know, there is a focus, and I get focused on the numbers as well, but I think in terms of health, general health, movement, ability to do things that you wanna do, I think that
Mhm.
prioritizing those things and looking at success in that respect, um, I think is very important, and not just get caught up on, um, the number of pounds you weigh. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've considering regardless of my size, I've lived I would say a good life, a normal life. I'm not someone who's shut into a home and where people bring me food and they have to knock out the door frame to get me in and out of the house.
Take them out of the
But
window. That's big
take them out of
enough.
the window. Yeah, I mean, I haven't nothing like that, and
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, I think it's important not to even if you're not succeeding at the moment, you know, don't start the next day. Start with the next meal or the next hour,
Mm-hmm.
and realize that there are going to be slip backs, just like in other recovery, relapse, relapse. Get back on the horse.
Right. Yeah, I think this is a good ending note with that, which is there's a story of somebody who was talking about dieting, and then he would have people who he'd work with, and they would be doing good for a week or two on their diet, and then they would eat a donut. They'd resisted it for the last 2 weeks, but they'd been thinking about it maybe the last couple of days, and they just cracked and ate it. And then after that, their mental state plummets, and then they just decide they can't do the diet anymore. And the guy's saying was like, "Come on, you ate one donut, and you're hating yourself the whole time you're eating the donut. You could have just accepted that you made a mistake and still enjoyed the donut, and then get back on the horse. Because we're all human at the end of the day. And like you said, progress, not perfection." Rob just gave us a thumbs up. That's a good thing to get from Rob.
I wanted
It
to
So,
go
is.
back to
oh,
the
go ahead.
OptiFast program for a second, and I feel
Mhm.
like the answer is no. But do you think that there might have been an effect of things not being nutritionally balanced enough, and that leading to how you felt at the end? Because I know that people who go vegan right away, that's such a drastic change, especially if they were meat eaters before. And I've had several friends go through this, and one of their first kind of feedback on that whole system is they'll go like the first year feeling miserable, tired, and exhausted. And the main reason is that they're not supplementing their diet in the correct ways, and they're missing out on vitamins and whatever that they're not getting from the purely vegan diet they have now. And I was curious if there's anything similar that you think might have been going on with that program too.
I would say no. And you correctly predicted I would say no. But I felt really good. If anything, I felt because I think that maybe the state I was in, based on what I was taking in, and it was primarily protein. I I had like I couldn't sit still. I had so much energy. Um, I mean, I was supplementing the diet with. I was on like a full set of vitamins. I mean, I wasn't. I didn't feel like um, nutritionally starved. Um, I
You're
felt
the
good.
anti-vegan, is what I'm hearing. You're killing it.
Well, I was no, I guess I just wish it. I wish it was. In hindsight, if I could go back to that point, the one thing I would have changed is I would have cycled off to something different. Um, and maybe gone with. Sorry, guys. I would have gone with a different type of diet, and let my body rest for a while from it, and then probably gone back to it again, and then just kind of seen if I could have hit that plateau again.
Mhm.
Or maybe what I should have done is weight loss surgery. There's a number of those, and I know this is probably a different topic for a different podcast, but maybe with the idea of locking in the weight loss or making it difficult for my body to gain the weight back again. Although some people um, have weight loss surgery and they still gain back the weight, even though it's
Mhm.
it's really difficult to do. Maybe I wish I would have done that, but
Right.
we'll see. I don't know. We'll see where. Hopefully, we'll find out where this goes.
We're gonna find out. I think it's gonna be a good thing. So,
Tune in next week.
Yeah, Rob, I just want to say thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I really feel a lot better about just everything, just hearing your story, because I think like maybe it's not as like you have the willpower to keep moving forward, and I mean you've been trying this whole time, and I think you've been learning throughout the years you've been alive, even if you the way you say it like you've had a lot of failures, you've learned from all your failures, or at least the one that you shared.
Which is what this
And
podcast is all about.
exactly. And so yeah, I just want to say thank you before we move on. And you're obviously still going to be here for the rest of it. I just want to be very formal. So to the next topic, I think we touched on this a little bit. I mentioned how eating that whole turnip study was in a video I watched about fasting, and I just wanted to go into for a good I think 2 or 3 months. I tried just fasting for days on end, and I
Intermittent
think
fasting.
no actual fasting, not eating
Okay.
a whole day, just water with salt water. So I think the most I got to was 6 days, and I would get a headache at the end of that. It was terrible. But
So wait, you salt water for you didn't have any food, like nothing solid?
no, yeah, no food. Wouldn't drink coffee or like drink milk, like literally just water and just salt.
Is that enough to live?
Well, there's science behind it, but after the third day, I would start feeling like I would start tasting or smelling acetone, and that's when your body goes into ketosis, which is like your liver starts processing fat from your body instead of anything else. And yeah, I mean the whole reason. So the reasons I did this, one very interesting experiment. Somebody said that a guy just stopped eating, and he was like, after the couple days, I actually wasn't hungry anymore. And I was like, that's bullshit. I'm gonna do it. And it was kind of true. I wasn't hungry, but I missed food. I wasn't feeling ravenous like how Rob mentioned, but I was feeling the lack of kind of connection with my whole routine. Like you no longer had to eat breakfast. So you wake up and what do you do? Oh, well, I'm just going to go to work. And I had more time in the day cuz I wasn't eating, but it was kind of sad to not eat something and not enjoy the taste of food, which is something I mean this is you don't need to stop eating to realize that food tastes good. But I definitely realized that and really appreciated how good food tasted. And the reason I'm talking about all this fasting stuff is a transition to you, Harris, because you just finished Ramadan last week,
Yeah.
and I think this goes in line with what we were saying about going into a diet very quickly. And I think Ramadan is somewhat like that because you're changing your eating habits on a day for a month, and then you just go back to normal. So tell us about it. How do you feel during that? And you probably should explain what Ramadan is, but I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah. Yeah, so Ramadan is a month in Islam where for 29 or 30 days, because it's based off of the lunar calendar. So,
Mhm.
the day before it's supposed to be the month, you go outside to look to see if you can see the moon with the naked eye. And if you can, then the next day is the start of Ramadan. Otherwise, it's the day after.
Mm.
So, anyways, for this entire month, 29 or 30 days, you observe the fast, which is no food and no water from sunrise to sunset. And there's a lot of reasons why you do it, depending on who you ask. The first reason is that you have to, because the religion kind of defines that as one of its five pillars of being a Muslim. Um,
Mhm.
but the more like significant reasons is you're supposed to focus more on reading like the Holy Quran, getting in touch with yourself like spiritually. You can go to the mosque and you can read the Quran and study hadiths, and you can talk to different scholars and stuff, and get more in touch with your religious side and that kind of stuff. You're also supposed to abstain from any sinful activity and really focus on Islam during that month. And there's also another thing where it's like if you are able to abstain. So I should back up and explain what halal and haram things are. Or haram
Mhm.
is anything that's just horrible, bad, terrible. Don't do it if you're a Muslim. And halal is things that are permissible by Allah, things that you can do.
Mhm.
And so the thinking is if you can abstain from halal things, it should be way easier to abstain from doing these haram things. And so there's
Mhm.
that kind of mindset that goes into it. So this goes on for a month, and then it just ended last week. So I did this for a month, sunrise to sunset. And I think when a
What
lot of
time
people
is sunrise and sunset?
depends on the time of year. I think this year it was like 5:30 or so. So what you have to
So
do is wake
5:30
up
AM.
5:30 a.m. as
Mhm.
opposed to p.m.
Well, just clarifying for the
Kidding.
people who do 24-hour time.
Yeah. Um, it's yeah, like it was like 5:30 or so, and then uh, it would become early and earlier because as you go closer to the summer, the days become longer, and you're supposed to
Mm,
finish eating like 10 minutes before sunrise starts or something like that.
mhm,
I usually do like a full 30 minutes just so I'm stuff. So yeah, you eat and then you make the intention to fast, which is called sahur. You say,
mhm,
oh, there's a little surah that you say, or when you translate it to English, you're basically saying, I'm going to fast for the whole day. And then you do the fast for the whole day. And then at sunset, you say, I kept the fast for the whole day. And then you can eat. Um,
mhm.
yeah,
And when would it end? So you said in the summer. I mean, so it sounds like the time of year, it depends how much you actually don't get to eat, like how
correct.
long.
Yeah.
So this one sounded pretty tough because actually, maybe not. I
No,
guess
it's easier.
yeah,
I
because
mean,
we
I
just started
started
doing longer days, but we
Exactly.
finished
I
early.
started fasting in the summer, which is really hard because that's super long
Yeah.
days. All your friends are out playing like soccer and basketball and dehydrating themselves, right? And you can't do that without dehydrating yourself. So
Just
it
can't
gets
drink
easier.
water.
Because it's a lunar calendar, it slides back like 10 or so days every year. So when I was younger, it was like smack in the middle of July is when it would be.
Mm.
And now it's more like it's in April and it's going to slide back to March. And the winter months are better because the days are way shorter. And so you can fast for a shorter amount of time and then get back to it. Summer is the worst because it's such a long.
So this might be haram for me to say, but is that cheating
No.
to to move it back 10 days?
You've stumbled into a very contentious topic where it really depends, right? Because there's like,
Yeah.
what if you live in Alaska, right? Like, are you just like
Oh,
hosed,
yeah.
or is that easier for you? So what some places will do, if the day night cycles are insane, they will follow like the religious center of the globe, which is Mecca in Saudi Arabia, and they'll just
Mhm,
say we'll follow whatever time they say and that kind of stuff.
mhm.
Some people might fly elsewhere and be like, hey, the days are shorter here, so I'm just gonna do it when I'm here. It depends on who you ask. I just do it wherever I'm at to the best of my ability.
Wow. Yeah.
um,
So what is
yeah,
it so, like, it's your lifestyle changes because of that. You said you couldn't go out and play. But recently, I know you were trying to work out.
yeah.
How did that go?
So last year when I did fasting, one of the biggest issues I had was I was hitting the gym very regularly before I started fasting. Then when I was fasting, I didn't go to the gym at all. And when I went back, I felt like terrible. I was lifting lower sized weights than I was before it started because I definitely lost muscle mass and ability during the fasting. So this year, I was like, I want to try to at least maintain, do nothing crazy, just kind of maintain what weights I was able to lift. And so I did. I didn't go as much as I would have liked to, but I did go to the gym a couple times while fasting. And it was really difficult. I mean, it was.
Mm,
I could feel my body really wanting water. Like, was the biggest thing. Like, it was just like, oh, I'm so thirsty. Some water would be amazing right now. And yeah, so it was tough, but it wasn't impossible. And I'm definitely going to do it again next year because I just need to
mhm,
kind of train and get better at it. And I think one of the things when I explain how this fasting works that everybody always comments on is the lack of water. Because I
mhm.
think if it was just like no food, but you could drink water, I think a lot of people would be like, "Oh, that seems
Yeah,
like reasonable." But then when I say no water, everyone's like, "Oh, how do you survive?" And I
yeah.
feel like after doing it for years, I think it's kind of just second nature to me now to be able to do that. But then I went and made it complicated by going to the gym while fasting, and then the body has limits,
Mhm.
right? And so it's telling you like, "No, you can't do that."
So do you miss food? I mean, you miss water, but do you miss food during that time, or is it kind of easier to like it's because I mean it's not super hard to like you said switch into not eating if you're used to it.
I don't I don't miss food during the fasting window. What I actually miss is the social component that comes with food because
Mm,
grabbing lunch with a friend or even grabbing dinner, depending on how early the dinner is a huge like social thing where you can just catch up with a friend. You can you're eating together. It's like the sense of camaraderie. And then at work, especially, there'll be a lot of work lunches and that kind of stuff. And then
mhm.
I'll have to kind of turn it down and explain the whole fasting thing. And then everyone's like, "Oh, that's really hard." And they kind of leave me in the office and go out to get
For
burgers. And
that.
I'm just sitting there writing code, kind of like I'm a little sad. Not a whole bunch of sad, but like this is
Yeah.
kind of a bummer.
That was something
Um,
I noticed when I fasted because it was very for me it was arbitrary. I mean, there's no reason I couldn't eat. Like I could just start eating at any time, but I would always like if somebody I think there was a day where they were having deviled eggs or another day they were doing hot dogs outside
yeah.
and everybody got up to leave and I'm like, "Oh, well, I don't know. I'm fasting, so I'm not going to go with you guys." And it definitely did kind of I felt a little bit excluded, but not for anything they did. It's just because of what I was doing. Actually, Rob,
For
you were going
me,
to add something. Yeah.
I was going to add something. Thank you. This video on idea is a great one. Um, the I
That was
found
Harris'
myself,
idea.
perfectly fine fasting, or not fat, but when I was like on the shake program, or other times when I was just not eating, be with people and be social with them as long as I could drink. I'm not talking about alcohol, but like as long as I could have like um, water or something like while they were eating and I was just
Mhm.
drinking or something like that. I I, I didn't mind at all. It wasn't like I would
Oh
look
yeah.
at their food and start like thinking about how am I going to get that fry from that guy. Nothing like
Just
that.
sneaking the hand under his armpit, just getting a little bit.
Wrestling for
That's
another turnip. No, I
yeah.
didn't. I didn't have any of that.
You got the guy
Yeah.
next to you got turnips and your eyes go wide.
Now, Rob,
Yeah.
I think you nailed it because in situations like that, you're right. I'm not thinking about the food very much. I'm not really like, "Oh, let me grab that burger or something." But it's usually the other people who feel really self-conscious, like, "Oh, this probably sucks for you, right?" And then I have to be
Yeah.
like, "Well, no, but now they brought it up a little bit, I guess."
Yeah.
And so there's a weird kind of like they're like on eggshells around you during the whole thing. And in those situations, I feel like it's just easier to not be in the same area, at least for them.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's because of my size. I could I could usually shut down most discussion with, "Up, special diet I'm on now. I'll tell you about it later," and just go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All I have are these shakes. It's fine. All good.
Yeah.
That's really funny the people apologizing to you for both of you for just being on a diet and like, "Oh, I'm sorry I'm doing something that you can't do." I would say that as a joke to you, Harris, whenever I would eat something with bacon and I'm like, "Oh, sorry, I'm eating bacon, Harris." But it's not
Yeah.
like you want bacon
No.
because for people who don't know, Muslims cannot eat pork. It's one of those is
It's
that one of the
haram.
pillars? It is
It's not a
haram.
pillar, but it is haram. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, that's like a thing that has been a part of Harris and mine relationship. I'll always say, "Sorry, I'm eating pork." Haram. Like it because he doesn't it's the same thing you guys were just saying. Nobody really wants it's not about the food, it's just about sticking around people.
And you're also right in that when I just say don't apologize because this is not something it's something I chose to do. It's not something that
Right.
has anything to do with, you. So go ahead and eat that Twinkie. I don't really go ahead, do what you're gonna do, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not, you know, I don't need you to opt into what I'm doing. It's just
Mhm.
I'm doing it. It is what it is, kind of thing. But yeah.
So I guess Rob, did your like social I don't know what to say, like your social ability or your socialization change when you were on a diet? And I guess also Harris this is for both of you guys. Like we already said about when people go out to eat, but just in general, like over time, did you feel like anything significant changes during Ramadan for that? Or for you, Rob, when you're on those diets?
You know, in terms of me, the socialization didn't change. A social guy. But I will say this: when I was on a diet and it was going well, I felt much more confident. When I was smaller, relatively speaking, smaller, I felt much more at ease. Sometimes, especially when I was up near my heaviest, in terms of where I was and who I was with, I would still be out and I'd still be talking to people, but I would feel less confident, less.
Mhm.
I feel more in the way. I feel more like out of the ordinary, especially if I was like in a group of people who I knew some and I didn't know some. I would feel a little bit more awkward in that respect. So it wasn't so much the particular diet I was on that drove that, but how I was doing on what I wanted to do and where I was on the spectrum of health and in size and weight.
Mhm. How would you respond, Harris?
Um, I agree with that sentiment. That apart from what I already said, not a lot really
Mhm.
changed social wise. I think everything else for me kind of stayed the same. I get into the office way
Yeah.
earlier because, like you said, I'm not going to go back to sleep right away after being awake for quite a while. So I just go to the
Mhm.
office, start working, and then a lot of people will be surprised that I'm in so early because I'm usually never in that early. And they'll be like, "Wow, it's like 6 in the morning and you're in the building." And I'm like, "Yeah, only for 1 month. Afterwards, after that, I'm going right back to how it used to be." Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I think apart from that, I think it's yeah, same old, same
So
old.
what I've thought is that dieting gives you kind of like a structure around it's like an explicit set of rules that you're saying I'm going to only eat these certain things, no matter if it's for health or, religion. But I'm curious, does when you're fasting for Ramadan, do you feel like your eating has more structure around it? Or does it make it easier to choose what you want to eat? Because that's one thing I didn't really mention before, but it's the idea of a diet restricts you from choices in theory. So I don't know if that's true. Does it make it easier to not to choose what you want to eat because of these restrictions?
I don't, I don't know. I feel like I ate basically the same stuff
Yeah, you
before
just ate it
Ramadan
at
and
different
after, but
times.
in a weird way, it became a lot uh, easier on me because
Mhm.
I didn't have to worry about lunch, and lunch is usually something I'll have to like plan out in advance, or
Mhm.
it'll be like 1 p.m. and I'm like, okay, where's nearby? Where can I go and get back before this meeting starts and that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. But during Ramadan, I don't have to think about any of that stuff. And even if I don't have anything in the
Mhm.
fridge, I can worry about it when I get home and then figure out what I'm going to do like after the fact.
Mhm.
So in a weird way, it actually makes me more productive and kind of frees up my schedule because I'm not having to worry about what I'm going to eat. But in terms of what I actually do eat, it pretty much stays the same.
Mhm.
One of the components of the program where I had a large fasting element to it was they explicitly wanted to limit what you had to certain flavors and certain types of food with the idea of eliminating choices for you to make it
Mm.
kind of easier, like the idea that it would shrink your world, not so much kind of to, I think it was to kind of rip you away from your relationship with food and make it just like it's not even a decision. I just drink this in the morning. I just eat this at 11 o'clock, whatever, and not have to think about it, think about planning it. And um, the idea was to change the way you thought and behaved by, by actually limiting your choices. So I think that in hindsight, I don't know about that. I understand it maybe as a temporary stopgap, but now I'm on the other end of the spectrum where I try to think about everything. I like
Yeah.
everything I eat, plan it,
Mhm.
and my life around, you know, w- what's best for me and when I can do it, so forth, so on.
Like that proximity thing. Like if you have an apple close to you, you'll eat the apple. But if you put a bag of chips right in your hand, you're going to start eating the bag of chips, right?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I
I get
try
that.
not to. I just try not to take any bags with me anymore.
Mhm.
Oh, I'll
Any
just
bags of
eat.
anything.
Oh, I had trail mix. Trail mix I had today
Yeah.
earlier in the day. and I made the mistake of taking the bag. Now it was trail mix, it was
Oh, yeah.
approved, but it was like the legit trail mix, like mostly nuts, flax seeds,
Mhm.
pumpkins. It wasn't like the
M&M's.
M&M version of trail mix, which is quite tasty, I might add. But
Oh, yeah, I love that
I
stuff.
still ate a full maybe cup and a quarter instead of just eating a quarter cup.
Mhm.
Still okay, but I wish I wouldn't have eaten as much as I did. But I think it was
Yeah.
because the bag was there. I was working on the computer.
Mhm.
A little bit of trail mix, a little bit of work, a little bit of trail mix, a little bit of work. Instead of just taking a little cup and then just taking, I found myself taking 4 or 5 pieces at once instead of just the one little piece at one time.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I learned about that proximity thing. So at my work, they had this thing called the canteen, which was like this little kind of like a la carte little area where you could get like all kinds of crap. None of it was good for you. It was all M&Ms and candy bars and bag of chips and like donuts and that kind of stuff. And they gave us like a $20 credit every month. So we could go down there and for free we could get all of this crap, right? And so, when I was frustrated with something at work, I would get up, I'd just find myself walking over there and buying something crappy. So like about 2 months ago, they actually started discontinuing this $20 credit, but they kept the canteen up and I never went again because I didn't have
Mhm.
the need. It wasn't as easy to go anymore. Like I'd have to go and swipe my credit card and that kind of stuff. And I was like, nah, I can't do that. And then I immediately went back. But before that, when it was there, it was accessible and all I had to do was walk down there to get it. I couldn't stop myself. And I would just get all kinds of
Mhm.
nonsense from there. So
It's really interesting. I was just thinking of Jen, my wife and Nick's aunt.
Mhm.
Her company, it's a medical supply company, and they have got all kinds of programs they like to do to promote health. What they will fund or not fund. What do you call that when you underwrite like a portion of the food cafeteria at work for employees?
like
But
subsidized.
it's subsidize it.
Subsidized.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Harris. They'll subsidize the healthier options. Like if you want to eat
Mhm.
unhealthy, you can, but it's going to cost you more. If you eat
Mhm.
healthy, you'll actually you can eat cheaper. So that was before COVID, but I thought that
Mhm.
was interesting.
That's the exact opposite to the problem we were discussing at the beginning of the podcast,
Mhm.
where the healthy food is far more expensive than the junk food and the fast food. So that's a
Yeah.
really good idea.
Yeah. And I was also thinking about going back to the origins of this. Like the wealthier people were usually the ones who had access to all these really tasty foods. Like if you could buy a cake, that was really hard to make back in the day. But now you can just go into a store and you could buy all the cakes for less than $30 maybe.
You're going to
And
reference George Cheney?
yeah, George Cheney. Yep. That's a reference. He would go and buy all those cakes before his diet, probably. But
Probably.
you ruined my concentration.
I'm
Um,
sorry. Thought you were going to do a dramatic George Cheney reenactment of him like eating a piece of cake and then writing it in his journal.
yeah. I also occasionally eat cake. Yeah, so yeah, going back, like I was thinking how peasants were probably the skinny ones and not like the people who were richer had more weight on them. But now the
Peasants, are
problem's
we are we
flipped.
are we back now to the Middle Ages?
I don't know
Apparently
what
so.
1700s is at the end
The
of Middle Ages.
serfs, the serfs, when they
These
lived on the
peasants are
feudal
below me.
estates, peasants
So
only
maybe
had
that's not the proper
gruel.
term.
I'm just kidding.
They
You
ate
can always edit
oatmeal
that
for
part out, my friend.
no, there's no editing for that part.
Rob, you're hilarious.
It's all
This,
part
this
of
is
it.
this is phenomenal.
Rob's a huge history buff. He's actually didn't you do that in college? This is an aside, but you studied history alongside whatever your actual focus was, right?
I did have the only course I had tried to set up a triple major. It's a long story. I
Mhm.
only had one course that didn't fit into one of those 3 majors, and I took a senior level history seminar as the only optional course, and it was on the Roman Revolution. Um, it was me and 6 history majors in the course, and it was all this like hardcore Roman text reading. Loved it, loved it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I took one of those multiple, what do you call it? The Minnesota tests where to determine what occupation. Did you guys have to take that?
Yeah, we did take that. Not at that test, but, like, there's something where they sat you down with somebody and they told you, "Oh, you probably make a good waitress, so
Yeah.
You
you should
did?
become
Well,
a waitress."
I
for
don't
me,
remember this.
lawyer, yeah, for me, lawyer was like 4. Number 1 was history professor, and I would have loved to have been a history professor. I wish that would have. I wish I would have seen how that one. That not saying I don't love the law, but it would have been interesting to see how that one would have played out.
Yeah. So back to food. What a transition. Um, yeah, so I guess I'm glad you guys shut me down because whatever I was saying was not super
I'm
important. I
sorry, it
think
was me. I'm sorry.
The
going back
peasants.
the peasants, going back to relationship with food, I really liked what you guys were saying, where it's when you're on a diet or when you're just day to day, your relationship with food really dictates how you feel. Like whether it's always there, it's like a thing that you do just because it's like you're not even thinking about it. Like how you said, Harris, with the snack cart, or Rob, just like you have to fundamentally change your relationship with food, like how you use food. And I think the diet's really some. It sounds like that shake diet really targeted that aspect where it almost wanted you to think of food as just an object and not something that really gave you life anymore. It was just a
It's
thing that
fuel.
you yeah. And that's I feel like that gets away from the way that the whole Greek dyada thing would want us to think about it. Like it's not food is not just fuel, it's a thing that's inherent to who we are. And like Harris, the way that you fast all the time, that's inherent to your culture, inherent to your religion. It's so it's not something that if you just suddenly stopped fasting, you'd kind of be losing a part of yourself. At least that's how I think about it. I'm not sure how you think about it.
Well, I mean, if you think about like how much of our lives and growing up or others are, I mean, maybe not so much anymore, but like we would always have dinner together as a family. We
Mhm.
would center around like everyone at the table talking about their day, sharing food. When we would go out with friends, you go out to a restaurant or to a
Yeah,
bar, and you share drink and food, and it's a very um, it's a bonding experience.
right. Well, I'm thinking of wrapping up here. Any final words, guys? That was
Um,
a good ending note. Better
Not
luck with
really,
the
other
layers.
than I was just gonna say thanks for coming on, Rob, and sharing your journey and some of your wisdom. It's really interesting to hear your viewpoints and perspective on things.
Well,
A lot of
thanks for
wisdom in them.
oh, I don't know about that, but I really appreciate you guys. Uh, I really appreciate being the honored first guest spot on Failing Forward. I hope I get to keep failing forward for a while until I get to the point where I'm failing a lot less and forward a lot more. But for anyone out there who's listening and who's struggled with this, you're not alone. Um, you can do it. Um, just keep trying till you find something that works for you. Just like anything else in life. If you're
Yeah,
having some bumps, look for a way around it. Look for a way through it. You can do it. Just don't lose faith. Don't lose heart.
I think that's the best message. That's really what I want us to take home today is that choosing what you eat every day, it's not easy. And especially trying to go on a diet for health reasons, it's really not easy. And yeah, Rob, your story really is inspiring. I mean, maybe like I feel like I was just hearing you say, you were about to say, thanks, I don't think so, but I really do think it is. And again, any listeners who want to share their stories, I'd be really touched by them. I don't know if Harris, you can set up an email address or something. I don't know how this works.
Yeah, yeah, we can do that.
Okay, okay.
It's
We'll put it.
2024. We
Yeah,
can do that.
but again, diets are not easy, and keep going through it. And there's always going to be trial and error in everything you do in life, and what you eat every day is just one aspect of that. So if you're going to fail, keep trying to move forward. So next episode, Harris is going to take the point and we're going to discuss the advent of self-driving and why we might actually be driving down the wrong road as a
Ooh.
society. So join us next week. Thanks. I'm Nick with my co-host Harris, and our guest was Rob. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, I'll edit out all this end stuff.
Are you gonna kill Craig now?
Yeah, we'll kill him. What is it? Stop.